we're live. We must be live now. Oh, happy Tuesday! Gotta love that spinning rainbow wheel that you get on your computer. You don't know what the heck's going on. But anyhow, hope everybody's doing well. We are, yeah, welcome to another edition of What the Heck's Going On in the Housing Market, coast to coast. I'm coming in from Massachusetts, but what's happening in Massachusetts isn't happening in California, isn't happening in Texas or Florida. So we're going to dig into that and go behind the headlines. I've got some articles, some interesting pieces that I uncovered this week, and we're going to have a discussion. But this week we're going to talk about how there's a little bit of a shift and whether home sellers are in denial, maybe, possibly, because buyers are digging in. Buyers are digging in with their not making offers on homes and holding back and forcing sellers to adjust their prices and all the things. So we've got I'm gonna have a conversation about that, a little discussion and so forth. But I get a friend joining me who likes to come on this live stream on the regular, and you know what? You guys know her, you love her. Hello, Mrs. Jackie Baker. What's up
Why,
there?
hello. What's up, Jen Sylvester? What's going on?
I am so happy to see you.
Me, thanks for being here. I love coming on this. Are you kidding me? It's
We
always a good
always have
time.
great conversations and all the things, and we have
You
so
sure
many
do.
conversations offline about the ridiculousness that is the housing market, and
I
just
know.
it's just there's just so much nonsense and so much misinformation about
Mm-hmm.
what's, and I think it's getting worse. With the article
Mm-hmm.
that we're going to dig into that I found as I'm reading the article, I'm reading through it. I'm going, this is just does no, this isn't true. This doesn't make sense. So this is why we do these things, right?
Absolutely. We're here to educate the consumers, Jen. So
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
let's
So
do it.
you ready to dive in? So first off, I'm going to
Yep.
start the show off. We're going to get to the main event in a few minutes, but I'm going to start off with a couple uh, breaking news articles that I came across,
Ooh, I
hot
can't
off the
wait. What do we
press.
got?
So this first one is about home selling scam that has real estate agents making changes. And I like to I like to this caught my eye, Jackie, because a lot of my viewers are home sellers, and it's something to be aware of. And the premise of this is not new, but it's interesting how some of the real estate agencies are taking some action. So this is coming out of Wichita, Kansas. And
Hmm.
it says there's a new scam making the rounds, and it has real estate agents in Kansas City making changes. Scammers are posing as home sellers. They take information from county deeds, create fake IDs based on the real landowner, then they urge a quick closing with full cash. If it all goes through, it can take months for a victim to discover what happened. Now, some agencies are directing brokers to use a trusted title company. Not all agencies use, some Massachusetts uses closing attorneys, some use title companies.
Mm-hmm.
These companies can be specific computer programs to, these companies can use the specific computer programs to catch scammers. Not all of them have been burned by this, so not all of them are taking steps. This is according to Overland Park Realtor Shelby Briggs Austin. She says that so we really have to educate agents not only to use title companies. I love these typos, Jackie. Is a news
Uh-huh.
publication like in the age of like ChatGPT and spell check. Really, I
I know.
digress. They use title companies that they're familiar with, but they need to know that they're doing the right thing to make sure that this doesn't happen. Owners of vacant properties can keep in regular communication with the county about inquiries on their deeds. They can also keep an eye on tax information and ensure everything is correct and on time to prevent any changes in ownership. And then I love that, it has period and then question mark.
Oh my God. Who
So we're
wrote
not
that?
going to comment about the topography and all
Yeah.
the things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, their
Um,
editing skills are a lot to be desired. But anyway, so this is kind of crazy, Jen.
well, it kind of goes back to the title companies, the title scams that we had talked about. I think I don't remember if you were on the stream at that week, but I did one a couple weeks ago, several weeks ago, about this kind of situation, but it was more organized, right? It wasn't just a single scammer or whatnot or two
With
scammers.
the real estate agent, was it the agents that was, yeah, the one who was
Yes.
scamming the elderly people? Yeah, I was on it. I was on the
Yep.
stream.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So they were scamming elderly folks that were living in the property and so on and so forth. These sounds like these guys are they're just going in. They're looking at properties that maybe vacant properties,
Yep.
and putting it out there. And it kind of reminds me, Jackie, of quite a few years ago. And I don't know if you remember. It was pre-COVID. There was on Craigslist people would there was a scam going around on Craigslist where people would pose as owners of properties, post a rental for that property,
Yes. I remember
collect a
that.
deposit because people are such in dire need of deposit for rentals. They take a deposit saying, you know what, this rental is going to go quick, but I'll hold it for you if you Venmo me $500.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And guess what? That wasn't a real deal. And
I
so,
know.
I was telling all of my folks, everyone that I came in contact with, listen, I don't do like I don't and rentals aren't part of my business because a lot of landlords and so aren't here anyways. They handle their own rentals. However, I am more than happy to vet it out for you. So I would tell them, if you see something on
Yes.
Craigslist, message me. I'll run it through. I'll check the registry of deeds for you real quick and tell you who the real owner is before you go any
Yep.
further. But this kind
No,
of
that's good.
in a way reminds me of that, right? Um,
Well, so to add to that, a couple of years ago, there was a scam happening around here where we were getting emails, just a random email from some guy claiming to be the owner of a property. He said, "Hey, I'm in London right now, and my house is located at such and such, 123 Main Street, whatever, in New Jersey, and I need to sell it because I need to have surgery, and I don't have the money. Can you list this for me and sell it up and sell it?" Like, yeah, okay, buddy. No, I don't think so. Yeah, like I'm gonna get all that paperwork done and send it over to you, and we're gonna e-sign it, and I'm gonna sell it. Are you kidding me? And we
well,
were getting a lot of those emails. Like, are these people think we're stupid? We're gonna actually take, jump on them? Like, oh, a listing, yeah, by somebody I don't know and never met face to face is through email. The
are you
heck?
are you actually
Like, what is that?
newsflash? Not all real estate agents do their job and check the registry of deeds. Do you know what I'm saying? That's what they're doing.
I know.
You and I would do that, but not every agent. Everybody says, "Oh,
I know.
you want to sell it quick? Sure, I'm hungry. I'll do it." And before you know it, you've
Yeah.
got a massive scam on your hands. So
No.
let's see who we got in the chat here. We got Zarinthia. Good to see you as always. Thanks for being here. We got
Hello.
Kato. Super, super glad to see you. And so I am in Massachusetts, and Jackie is in North Jersey, good
Yep.
old Bergen County, New Jersey.
Yes.
We got Jen G. Hello, ladies. Is that's I that we have to keep an eye on that one because that one looks a little sus,
We
little like
gotta, I
trouble,
know, we gotta
little
watch
trouble.
her. I know. She
We
could be a
got
troll.
Clark,
I don't know.
Clark in the house,
Hey,
and
Clark, what's going on?
we got Cato says, what happened to a friend of mine? He rented an unoccupied home from a random guy for a few months before he figured it out. So yeah,
Oh
that
my
kind of stuff. So
gosh.
back, there's
That's
so many
insane.
checks and balances that have happened over the last 5, 6 years, right?
Yep.
That people moving in, you don't even know they're moving in because that exact situation, and then it's like, well, what happened to the people? Oh, they're gone. The money's gone, and all the things. But like, so what can you do? And we've talked about this, but for those that are new
Yep.
here, what can you do? Well, for first and foremost, what I would recommend is you want to check to see um, if your registry of deeds has a free title service. So somebody had told me this, and mine does. I went to the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds website.
Really?
Right on the front page of the website, click here to sign up for free deed monitoring. Put in
Really?
put in my name, my email address, boom, boom, boom. and now they've
Oh,
got my
wow.
information. So if anything happens to my deed, as you know, I put it in exactly the way it's written on the deed. And if something changes, they're going to email me. So is that the
Wow.
same as like a title lock?
Home
Probably
title lock, it
not.
sounds well, I don't see, I don't know, it could be similar to home title lock because that's what they're doing anyway. They're monitoring, to see if there's anyone stealing your deed. So I
Except
don't know, maybe.
it's free.
I
If
know.
if
So
it's
I don't know if
free,
we are
it's for
yeah,
me. I
yes.
I like
Yep,
free, but so I mean, so there's that, right, Jackie? You can look and see if you get it free, and if you don't,
yep,
maybe you consider doing the title lock, because
yeah,
I mean, I compare, keeping an eye on your title to going up in an attic that you don't store stuff in, or going to a crawl space that you never go down to. You have no idea what's going on there. And I mean, how many homeowners that have you talked to that you're like, during a home inspection, you're like, holy cow, I didn't know that was the
mhm,
case. I had one
right.
of those situations a couple of years ago when I was putting in mini splits, and they had to upgrade my. They had to add some a breaker to my panel. They took the cover of my panel off. I had water, and unbeknownst to me, I had breakers that were melted, that were arc. I had
Oh,
no idea, and I'm on top of that stuff. I'm
I know.
I have a whole house surge
I'm
protector. I
surprised.
got all the things.
Surprised to hear that.
But when do I take the cover of my panel off? Like,
Right, that's true.
never.
Yep, yep,
Never. So it's the same type of thing. You're not gonna, you lose track of it.
exactly.
Um, we got David Matney in the house.
Hello,
Good to see
David.
you, my friend.
Going on?
We got Sue says, I have something similar from my county auditor's office to do what Jen described. Yeah, I feel like this uh
Yeah.
is
And
something that's
Jen,
going to be popping up more and more, and I feel like, because that's what happens, right? Companies come out with paid services, and then the counties step up and say, well, you know what? If we've got like a bunch of people on fixed income and seniors, they can't
right.
afford to go shell out $50 a month or whatever it costs. It's
Do you
it's
see Jen G's comment? Jen G works for Register of Deeds, and she said, "Do you see that? They have a notification system where she works."
so
You
you
see
know
that
what? I
comment?
have my Gen G, like my filter glasses on, so I didn't even see the comment. That's a joke. There's no such thing. Well, there probably is. Probably Mark Zuckerberg's working on something. I don't know.
You never
Um,
know.
I work at the registry. We have a notification called property check to notify homeowners if something is filed. Yeah, that must be the same thing that
Yeah, but
my
well, you know
mine.
what? They're probably all getting on board to do this stuff now.
Yep. So
Saves them a lot of aggravation.
the plot thickens because this popped up on April 30th. Look at this is I mean, this is a high class woman. This is, I mean, just saying. Like,
Oh,
I don't know, why is it that the mugshots, like, it's like shows you who you really are, I guess. I don't know.
that's just as good as the one from the last time, the Long Island agent
She
that
looks
was ripping
super
people off.
trustworthy. That's all I'm saying, right?
Totally,
Just totally trustworthy.
I'd hire her.
Woman
Come on.
arrested again. you know,
How does that happen? Just can you tell me how does that happen? Twice.
a rural Scottsbluff woman. This is in, Scottsbluff, Nebraska.
Nebraska. Oh, I wonder
Ne-
if David knows who that is. That's up in
Nebraska.
his neck of the woods.
Maybe he knows her. I don't know. I hope not. I
Hope
hope
not.
not.
So, David,
David, I'm sure
please tell
keeps
us you
better
don't know
company.
her.
A rural Scottsbluff woman who was, now listen to this. She was just granted parole after serving a prison term after a jury found her guilty of exploiting a vulnerable elderly woman by forging names on real estate documents and trying to sell the associated property. And she was arrested Tuesday for a nearly identical crime.
What the heck? Are you for
Someone
real?
obviously
Oh my God.
doesn't, that she didn't learn her lesson. 49-year-old Londa Neal is facing fresh charges of second degree forgery, abuse of a vulnerable adult, and attempted theft by taking by a theft by taking for trying to sell a home just west of Scotts Bluff. Way back in 21, Neil and her then husband Barry forged a quitclaim deed on the property on Page Drive to sell it without the consent of a co-owner, Joyce Nelson. Both Londa and Barry were convicted on charges, but when Londa got paroled from prison in late March, she tried to sell the property again and
Oh
showed
my
the
God.
same. You get like Jerry Springer vibes going on here. Like, seriously, I mean,
Oh,
it's, and then I feel like the article is going to end like, and she, and the baby was hers.
yes.
I you know, I just like, this is real life, guys. This is not like The Onion or something. This is actual real life. Oh
Oh my
man, it
God. I
says,
can't believe that.
but when Londa got paroled from prison in late March, she tried to sell the property again and showed the same forged. She's a very sharp tack.
Yeah, really? Oh,
She showed
geez.
the
She's
same.
a criminal mastermind. Like,
She's a criminal
what?
mastermind. Showed the same forged 2021 quitclaim deed to the buyer from Alabama. Nelson told authorities that she once again was unaware of the sale of the property and had not had any contact with Neil since she stood trial in 23. Londa Neal was arraigned on the charges yesterday. Bond was set at $25,000 at 10%, and she'll be back in court on May 9th on her preliminary
Oh,
hearing.
oh God. Have fun in prison.
Stay
I hope they
tuned,
kept
folks.
hope they kept the bed
You
warm for
can't.
you. Oh
This
my
is
God.
just adding some levity to the situation. I mean, you
Oh
can't
my
make this stuff up,
God.
Jackie. You
No,
can't
you
make this
can't.
stuff up.
I don't know where you find these stories, but they're pretty funny. So
Well,
thanks for sharing.
I don't know. They're under rocks everywhere. Michael Cornell, good to see. It seems that many people have very limited short perspectives and think historically balanced market is a buyer's market. We're going to get into that conversation
Oh, we sure
for
are, Michael.
sure. Uh,
Yep.
David says, "Hey, Jackie and Jen sounds like a band from the 70s. Hey now,
I
don't
like
tempt
it.
me. Don't tempt me."
She's gonna break out in
Kato's
song, David.
Cato says all the based realtors are on the East Coast. I'm in Seattle, dying to sell and upgrade to somewhere with small land, even a big yard will do. Very good. My cousin actually lives in Seattle.
Oh yeah,
Well, there you go. I've actually
never
had
been
quite a
there.
few referrals in on the West Coast and in
Oh,
Seattle. Yep.
I
All right.
haven't had any there yet.
Oh, here
Anyway,
we go.
okay.
Cerinthia's got, the blunted crayon
The
in the
blunted
box.
crayon.
Lisa Bender in the house, and she says, "I thought I was stupid."
Oh,
Oh
stop.
my goodness, you are I'm sure you're a genius compared to some of these stories. Red says you
Oh
can't make
my
this stuff
God.
up, and Genji, that girl is as sharp as a bowling ball. And we'll finish it up with Zorinthia says, or she has an emotional attachment to her jail cell and want to go back.
I agree with that, Corinthia. I think you're right.
I think we're gonna end it
Yep.
on that. There we
Yeah, like
go.
I said, I hope they kept her bed warm for her because that
I'm
was a
sure
short
the
lived.
gods are like, "Hey, how was your visit to the outside world? We'll come back from your short vacation."
Exactly.
Mm. All
Mm.
right, let's get into the
All
meat.
right.
So, the thumbnail with the negative $39,000, Jackie, was that's the typical home seller wants $39,000 more than the typical buyer is willing to pay. And so, this article on Redfin, which was published last week, is talking about the similar conversation we had last night on your stream. And
Yes.
I've got a little bit, we're going to get a little bit deeper and a little bit more specific on as far as where that's happening and all the things. But it
Yep.
says, the prices home sellers are asking for and the prices home buyers are paying haven't been this out of whack since the start of pandemic. Typical home for
Mm.
sale is listed for four. Excuse me. The typical. I'm so I'm so like
Take a
befuddled,
breath. It's all
verklempt. I
good.
don't even know about those
It's all good.
articles. Can't read. The typical home for sale is listed for 9% more, or $38,672, than the typical home is selling for. The biggest gap since May 2020. The gap between home list prices and sale prices is widening. So you see, like back in 2013, the red line is the median home sale price, the blue line
Yep.
is what it listed at, right? And so it's typical back when the market's a little bit more balanced market, it was typical for the sale price to be slightly lower, you know, and there's ebb and flow based
Hmm.
on what time of year it is, because the time of year will create more demand, right? But then it
Hmm.
starts to just, you get up to like 2020, and that's where things get wonky, right? And gets a little wonky, and it's
Yeah.
close. And look at this, the list price, sale price separation, you know, and then, but now look at this gap up here. The
Yeah.
gap is, that's a pretty wide gap, and I have my thoughts on why, but and actually this article does. I got into Redfin last week, Jackie, in my live stream, because the data that they had was very specific and based on Redfin agent only data. And
Hmm.
my feeling is you got to be very, very careful. It's very skewed, and you can't make assumptions that just because a Redfin agents surveyed are saying this, that that's applying to the mass, real estate population. But
Hmm.
this time they're pulling it from MLS. So it's a broader database, a little bit more reliable
Good.
data.
Yep.
Uh, so it says this is based on home listing and home sale and sale price data in March, when the typical newly listed home had a price tag of $469,729, which was a record high. The typical home that sold last month fetched $431,057, below the June 2024 record high of $442,000 and change. Redfin's analysis of MLS data covers median sale prices of homes sold during a given month and median list price of homes. Redfin's records date back to 2012. The gap is widening because list prices are growing more than twice as fast as sale prices. The median list price rose 6.2% year over year in March, the biggest increase since September 22. By comparison, the median sale price climbed 2.5%, the smallest increase since September 23. The last time list price growth outpaced sale price growth by this much was July 2020, which is interesting, when the pandemic home buying frenzy fueled fierce bidding wars, empowering sellers to sell high. And then here is the meat of the matter. Today's situation is much different. Sellers are pricing high based on comps from the past rather than current demand. That's what I want to talk about. Today's list price growth is accelerating while home sale price growth is decelerating. Back in 2020, both were accelerating. And that, in a nutshell, I think legitimately explains it all, Jackie. In terms of
Well,
how sellers are just, I think they're not looking at, they're not keeping up with where the market actually is today.
but but again, now you know I'm going to go with
Yeah,
this.
go there. Go ahead.
You know I'm going. I know you go there all the time. Why are the agents allowing them to list the homes at the higher price? Like it's like it comes back to them. I understand we got to do what the client wants,
Yep.
but if the seller's not realistic,
Yep.
you're going to have price reductions. You're going to have to do it. If you got to price according to the most recent comps. We go back 3 to 6 months. Typically, like nowadays, I go back the last 3 months
Same.
and see what's
Same.
sold, right?
Yep.
Because we have to. It's you and I both are still in hot markets, so we're going back to three.
And
But three to
even
six months,
even if you're not, I still say you go back 3 months,
yeah,
because the fact that the market is changing everywhere,
yep,
and some up,
yep. That's
some
a good
down.
point.
But you've got, I think the market is changing everywhere. So going back, and if you do go back more than 3 months, you have to consider an adjustment attached to those
Yes,
comps. You can't
million
take it for
percent.
face
And you got
value.
to exactly. You have to make adjustments accordingly on like how much the prices were increased and all the things, right? Because that's what the appraisers do.
Yep.
But seeing this drives me absolutely insane because to still be out putting these homes listed at these ridiculous prices when you're in a market where things are obviously shifting, it's just, oh my God, I don't get it. Why are these agents doing this? Why are they allowing it?
Well, you know
I
the answer.
understand I know they
It's
need the
the
business. I get it. We need the business. They need the
Well,
listing.
no, because they're crappy agents.
Well, they're crappy agent. That too. That
80%,
too. But
right? So
the
so
80 percenters. But
eight
I just
yeah.
but you're doing a disservice to everybody by just
I
agreeing to
agree.
that. You and I work the same way. When I walk into a listing and somebody says, I want to sell my house for 1.5, I think it's worth 1.1, and they're insistent, no, this is what it's got. The neighborhood across the street, the house is selling in this price point. Well, guess what? Your neighborhood doesn't command that price. And I'm not going to waste anybody's time putting it out at that price because you're going to have a major price reduction.
Correct. I
And,
agreed.
and
I
I'll walk
agreed.
away and I'll walk away. You'll walk away. It's not right. And so
Nope.
this is now you're seeing all these price reductions happen, and it's because you said the sellers are just, no, we're going to put it out there anyway at the price you want, and then
Yep.
it I don't know.
Yeah. Here's the thing
You knew I was
is,
going there with that.
well, here's the thing. I think that it does go back on the agent for multitude of reasons. Number one reason is if the home seller was advised incorrectly to begin with. Okay.
Hmm.
They don't know how to, this is why when I talk about the 80% versus 20%, 20% for those watching, if you don't know what an 80/20 agent is, it's my opinion. Jackie shares the same opinion that
Yep.
after, I mean, I'm going on, gosh, Jackie's in a couple less than a month, I will have been in the real estate industry selling, helping buyers and sellers for 29 years. I got my license when I was 10, just in case anybody's
I
trying to
was
do
just going to
math.
say, how old are you? Like
Don't
10?
even zip it, zippy. But it's a long time. And
Yeah.
I've seen a big change over the last 10 years, 15 years, last 5
Yeah.
years in agents. Because I'm active agent, because I've sold close to 1,000, I've held 1,000 families over the course of the 29 years. I've a
Yep.
lot of interaction with agents, and it's my opinion that 80% of them across the country are unskilled, they're untrained, they're unprofessional. Some of them are not doing it intentionally. Some of them just don't get the guidance by their broker. They don't know what they don't
Right.
know, right? Still shouldn't be out there practicing real estate, and a lot of them are in it for themselves. 20%,
Hmm.
and honestly, it's probably less than 20%, right, are the ones that do know better. The 20% agent in this situation is going to do their homework. They're going to stick to the 3 months. They're going to, really dig in and know the price that house should be priced at, and then present and
Right.
explain it. Not just say this is what the price is and be done with it, but actually explain it to the home seller. Now, if the home seller says, I disagree with you, Jen. I don't think the house is worth 500,000. I think it's worth 575. Okay, Mr. Seller, yes, you are the captain of the ship, but I'm not going to waste your time listing it. I'm not going to waste my time, quite honestly, if I know it's a price that I cannot justify. I'm not doing a service
Hmm.
to them. I'm not doing a service to them by misleading them, thinking they can possibly get that price. And so
Hmm.
I'll ask them, why do you think that? Oh, well, Zillow's got this thing, house down the road. Okay, Mr. Seller, let's talk about it together. Let's look it up. And now this is my job to help educate him.
Right.
If the agent just says, okay, if you want to list it there, that's fine with me, and thinking to themselves, well, I'll just get a price change, because that's what's happening. They're going back to the office, and they're I'm not going to say the word talking, shit talking.
Yep.
They're the client behind their back and saying, oh, I got the listing, but they're gonna we'll wait, and when it doesn't sell, he'll lower the price. Really? Stuff drives me bonkers, because that's
Don't do it.
our job,
Don't do it.
is to educate him. Now, if you have a home seller, if you're stuck in the mud, you're like, I don't care what you say, then I turn around and be like, why am I even here? If you're hiring me for my expertise, why am I here? And you know
Why am
what?
I
I'm not
here?
the right agent for
Absolutely.
you. I'm not.
Yeah.
So, but that doesn't usually happen that way. Usually they're saying that price because they don't understand the market. They
No.
don't understand the market. And
No,
now it's
because
my
with
job to help them understand. And
so you know what I
that's what I think is happening here, Jackie. I think that we have got a ton of agents that don't know how to interpret the market. They don't understand the market, and they're not explaining it to the clients. So now we got all these sellers that are out there in the Wild West, pricing their houses way over where it should be. And now and buyers are like, not today. Mm-mm.
Yep.
I'll see you
No,
in, a month.
but you also have sellers that are they're getting advice from their family members, their neighbors, like, oh, your house is worth, you know, so and so's house sold for this. Your house is definitely worth that. It's worth more
Yep.
than that. And it's psychological. They get these numbers stuck in their head, and that's all they see, that's all they know. And so when
Yep.
we come in and say, yeah, no, here's the comps, here's the data, this is what's sold, they get all upset and they're like, and they insist on it, and that's when we're just like, my so here's another thing I'll do. So if somebody's insistent on a certain price, and if we're within, a reasonable range, I'll say like, all right, we can try it. But it's that after 2 weeks, if we have no offers, we're reducing it to my
Well, you can do
price.
that in your market. You can do that in
Mm-hmm.
your market because you have more, a little bit more flexibility because you have a lot more demand. But doing that
Mm-hmm.
in a market like Austin or Florida,
Oh yeah.
that
Oh
is
yeah. No,
not
that you
a good
can't
strategy.
do.
That is
No.
not a good strategy,
That's
right?
right.
Agreed?
Yep.
So it really
Yep.
depends on the market. Lisa says that I think agents sometimes tell sellers an inflated price just to get the listing.
She's
Amen,
not
sister.
wrong. Absolutely, Lisa. They do that.
110%. And
Drives me
and
up a wall.
yep. And that's why
I don't
when
like that.
I meet with a potential client, right? I meet with a potential client, I go over and I spend, well, I'm also like, I'm not even type A, Jackie. What would you say? I'm like type A, like
You're like
overboard. Like
you're a infinity, my
I
dear.
spent a lot
You're
of
a
time
infinity.
researching, but that's just me because I feel like I'm like that's my comfort level when I sit down with someone. If I've done all the research and that number does not make sense to me and I back away, or they interview another agent and the agent's like, "Oh yeah, I can list that house for that." And then I see it in the MLS, I think exactly what Lisa just said. They bought the listing.
They did. They
Have
bought the
fun.
list. That's
Have fun.
exactly it. Have a good time with that. Have a
Yeah,
good
it's
time.
sad.
Yep,
It's really sad.
it
Clark
is.
says listings down here. Now, Clark is down in the Atlanta, greater Atlanta area, Georgia. Listings down here are compiling and sitting. Sellers are now starting to get anxious. Meeting with a seller tomorrow for a pre listing appointment, and the price he wants to list it at makes no sense.
Oh,
Yeah,
jeez.
it's, this is the thing that is honestly, I think sometimes we're part-time we're part-time real estate agents, full-time psychologists, as a therapist, but to
Yep.
try to understand and explain and be sensitive to the home seller, but also be firm and all the things, and
Mm-hmm.
we do our best. We do our best.
That's right.
And
Yes, we do.
what a big you must be talking about our wonderful woman that was arrested. Yeah, she's got something going on there. She's got something going on there.
Yep.
Stacy says, "Don't you think sellers' pricing is partly based on emotions?" 110%,
Yep.
Stacy.
All the time.
Um, they see the value the house gave them. They were attached to it. They can't see it as a business. You
You're
couldn't have hit the
absolutely
nail on
right.
the head better. Like that is what I think that's where what our value proposition is. That's what I when I talk to my clients, I'm like, that's the value of all the value proposition that my role in this is to be the pragmatic. How can you not be emotional? I mean, yeah, there's going to be some people
Mm-hmm.
that is, you know what it is like, the engineer type brains, the ones that are like, it's four walls and a roof and all. Most that's not normal. That's not the norm. Not normal. Didn't mean to say that, but
Yep.
that's not the norm, right? The norm
Right.
is people are attached to the values. They're attached to the not attached to values, but they're attached to the value that they maybe added to the house, or they've been in the
Mm-hmm.
house longer. You've been in it, the more you have, you know, improved it, and you, it's an infinite number,
Yep.
But that's why I think that at the end of the day, why a good agent, what a good agent brings to the table. Um, but on the same note, if it's a bad agent, you might as well. I would rather see somebody do a FISBO than
So
do a work with a bad agent,
so let
honestly.
me let me share a perfect story, an example, a story about that. So like years ago, my in-laws had a beach house down the Jersey Shore, and it was in the family like forever. And my mother-in-law brought a real estate agent in just to get an idea of how much it was, because the market was like back years ago, it was market was really hot. And it was this little three-bedroom bungalow type house. It was like nothing fancy at all. And she loved the front porch. It was this closed-in porch that they added, that they
Okay.
put on. I mean, it was okay, but she was she was so upset because she was so proud of it, showing the real estate agent. She's like, "Oh, we have this really wonderful porch here," and and the agent, she looked at, it, she's like, mm-hmm, okay, like
Yeah.
she was like, yeah,
Oh,
and
well. Yeah.
And like
I,
you
I
think, and so you think your house is worth $1 million because you have this porch? It was pretty funny because my mother-in-law was like, "Oh, she didn't like my porch." I go, no offense, the house is a knockdown. She doesn't care. They're gonna knock it down and build on top of
yeah, I
this. I mean,
think
yeah,
there's a tactful way to communicate from an agent's perspective.
yeah,
I try to be, it's
exactly.
like
Oh,
I
I know.
recognize the fact that I'm in their home. It's not,
Yes.
yes, it's four walls, but I'm still keeping myself grounded in the fact of where I'm at. I think that's
Yep.
important to an agent to not be just like it's a street address on a folder and it's gonna be a transaction on a freaking whiteboard or whatever. You know, you don't that's the worst kind of because then you when you show up, subconsciously that's the way you show up. And
Right.
and now the seller's like what's going on here? Are they actually giving me the right information? Are they really looking out for my best interest? Do they really care? And I think that
Yep.
that an agent that balances, um, it's a winner. I think it's a good way to go. I think it, helps you, it helps the pill easy,
Y-
it makes the pill easier to swallow when you don't agree with what you think, or maybe you're disappointed. You're like, I thought it was here, but now it's down here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Clark
Mm-hmm.
says that the market. I told him the market is shifting and that the price he wants to list it at is not competitive with the market. It's a condo, so that has never been more difficult to sell if
Oh,
not priced right. Mm,
yes. Good luck, Clark.
yeah.
Sending you good vibes
You know
that
what,
that
Clark?
goes well.
Though
That's
Clark,
not
you're an
easy.
awesome professional agent. I have Clark's on my list for those wondering. He's on
Yeah,
my
Clark,
preferred
top
partner
notch.
list.
Me, same,
He and David
same.
Matney both on my list. They're definitely absolute
Yep,
classic 20% agents.
absolutely.
Angie, Mad Cat, good to see you. Good to see you.
Hello, Angie.
Um, JM says, I feel like in mass, they're listing low and everything sells 50,000 over asking or more, at least in my budget. Speaking of, our offer was accepted today in Worcester. Let's see if I can get to the, here we go.
Woohoo!
Yeehaw.
All right. Congrats.
Congratulations. That's fantastic.
That's
Yeah, and yes,
awesome.
it was
It's
$50,000
50,000.
over asking. Yeah,
Good for
but
you.
here's the thing. I mean, again, depending on the property, but more often than not, because of the market that we're in right now in my area on the South Shore, I think that going at a fair market value, maybe just slightly under, to get more traffic in the door, because more
Yep.
traffic equals more excitement. More excitement typically equals more
Mm-hmm.
interest and more buyers and more offers. When you have, as a home seller, when you have more offers, that typically always results in the price being pushed up. Um,
Yep.
from a seller standpoint, I think it's a good negotiation. You're not underpricing it or pricing it too low. Some agents do that for sure.
Oh yeah.
But I think some agents are just doing, just right at the fair. So it looks like, oh my gosh, it's like so cheap. It's not really cheap. It's just like it's actually a reflection of the market, because the
That's
market
right.
is not appreciating 8 and 10% anymore. It's a couple percent, 2, 3%, depending on the area. But that's
Exactly.
hey, we're just gonna celebrate the good news that you got your offer
Yes.
accepted.
That's
Um,
awesome.
Harlem, love ya, love ya. What's the average price to list in New Jersey, and is it still a seller's market? Oh, Jackie,
I
would you like to comment on
Oh, we'd love to comment.
that?
So it depends. It depends. Again, which part of New Jersey, like northern New Jersey, here in Bergen County, we are looking, you ready? It's probably averaging around 800,000 plus. It's the average sale price right now. Uh-huh. And then if you go, say, like Morris County, that's North Jersey. Same thing. You're looking anywhere between 800 and a million.
Wow,
That's what this homes are
wow.
selling for. Then yes, it is still a seller's market. As a matter of fact, my client today wanted to put an offer on the house. Called the listing agent. Yes, highest and best. We already have multiple offers over asking price, all the things. And this house is listed at a million, and they already have offers over asking. So, um, And another buyer of ours that we're working with, they were contemplating this house in Essex County, Westfield, Cranford. Those are really hot markets too because it's accessible to New York City. You ready for this one, Jen? There's a house on the market at 1.5 million on a busy road in this town of Cranford. And come to find out, we found it from the listing agent. They took a cash offer of 1.6 million.
This is why prices, this is
Mm-hmm.
why there won't be a crash. Because
I
not
know.
because prices are going up, not because the housing market is going to become any less affordable, it's because of the amount of cash that's out there. The
Yeah,
amount of
I know.
money. The amount of money. Yes, there is a ton of people that don't have the
Yep,
money. There's a ton of
I
people.
know.
And
And
unfortunately, it's middle class and below, right? Although
yep.
you could argue that a lot of those middle class homeowners who have been in their house for a very long time have equity. And now they take that equity
Lots
and
of
they
it.
cash
And
out and buy a house
yep,
cash. Now they have their social
exactly.
security, but no mortgage, right? And
Exactly.
it's a more affordable
Yep.
situation. But that in
Hmm.
itself, is one of the reasons that it protects it. And that's the thing is different between now and what the great financial crisis, right? And there are so many comparisons because there was a big incline in prices, big incline, great financial crisis, big incline, huge incline, which it was artificially created because of the pandemic and all the money that was just shoveled into the system. They were printing money
Hmm.
like crazy, right?
Yep.
And then people were bored. They were like locked up in their houses. They're like, I don't want to be in this house with my family members. I don't like my family members that much. I need more space. Get me out of here.
Yep.
Or I don't want
Yeah.
to be in the city. I want to be in the country. I want to get out, and I'll do whatever it takes to get out of here. That
Yep.
was different than the great financial crisis. But the equity position is totally different. The
I
equity
know.
position was not as plentiful as it is now. And that's why
Yeah.
people will be able to ride the storm. They're going to take it on the chin. You might sell and not make as much equity, but you're still making equity. You're
Yep.
still making a good chunk of change.
Absolutely. I
And
mean,
you got cushion.
I shared I shared an article on my stream a couple weeks ago. Dave Matten sent me that Bergen County, New Jersey is still a pandemic market. Still, five
Yep.
years later.
Yep.
And that's because we still got the New York City contingency wanting to get out. And that's what's feeding it right now. And that's where
Yep.
the money is. So anyway.
Zorinthia says, I know, let me get this. Here we go. I know I had a price in mind for our house, and it was a sad thing to find out that it was far too high. Yeah. I always tell folks, Jackie, um, I tell them like I come in the door and before I even sit down, I'm like, full disclosure. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. And I'm
Hmm.
not expecting you, and I'm not going to try to convince you to love it. I'm not. But what I am going to do is help you understand. That's all I ask. I'm not asking you to love the number. I'm not asking you to be happy about it, but
Right.
I am going to do what I can to help you understand. As long as you understand it, then we're good. But I will be,
Exactly.
straight up. I'm not going to buffer and tell you like it is. Patty says,
Yep.
lots of single family homes here in South Florida that are still overpriced. I think that's the situation down there too, is people are kind of freaking out.
Hmm.
The prices are shrinking. They're like, oh, lost money maybe. Or maybe they bought and they're like, I don't want to be here anymore. There's way too many hurricanes. and
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 it's gotten
and
expensive there
it's
too,
gotten
you
way
know?
expensive. Insurance and homeowners,
Yeah.
HOAs and stuff like that. Is market flooded with unsaleable condos? There are lots of people moving out of the state. You know what? Here's the thing: is what we're gonna see, Patty. There are a lot of people that are moving, but as those prices soften, would you agree, Jackie, that there are a ton of people that would love to buy and live 6 months out of the year in Florida, but just
Hmm.
they can't do it right now financially because of how
Right.
expensive it is. When those prices come down, game
They'll
over.
come back. They'll,
You're
oh,
gonna
they'll,
you're
yep.
gonna see people gobble those things up. You're gonna see those homes
Yeah.
sell. If people are gonna buy them once they start trickling down in price, they're gonna say, you know what, I can afford it. I can afford it.
Yeah.
I will weather the storm. I'm okay with all the things and whatever not, but the prices gets down, there's there's a butt for every seat. There's a buyer for every house.
Yes,
It's just a matter
that's
of
right.
the number.
Well, Jen, do you recall last night on my stream, somebody had commented about the number of condos in Florida that are under $100,000 right now? I forget
Mm-hmm.
what that number was, but there
Yep.
it was a large number. So to buy something for under 100 grand,
It's
I
crazy.
mean, come on, that's a bargain.
I wanted to jump back to this article because I wanted to get into the areas that are seeing where the biggest gap is. Um, the article goes on to say that buyers and sellers are on different pages, which we just discussed, which is the crux of the divergence. Crux of the divergence. If I can talk correctly. In sales price and
You're
list
good.
price, sellers continue to demand last year's record high prices, mortgage, but with mortgage rates still so high, the buyers have reached their limit and are budging. That sentence, these sentences. So doesn't sellers continue to demand last year's record high prices, but with mortgage rates so high, buyers have reached their limit and are budging. A lot of
Hmm.
homeowners who are selling now also bought during the peak of the market in 21, 22, and are trying to recoup their investment. Home buyers today have the upper hand. Oh, this is the sentence that I was like, wait, what? Home buyers today have the upper hand because they're outnumbered by sellers. Jackie, what's wrong with that sentence? Home buyers today have the upper hand because they're outnumbered by sellers. And that's a tough pill to swallow, a tough pill for sellers to swallow. Everybody watching this, that sentence is BS. If you have more sellers than buyers, okay, less. If you have more sellers than buyers, well, I guess
Hmm. That becomes a buyer's market
it becomes a
because
buyer's
you
market.
have
Actually,
more.
yeah, okay,
Because
I see
yeah,
where
they're
they're going. I
outnumbered by
see.
sellers. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You know
Because
what?
it's more. There's more competition.
You
There's
know
more
what?
inventory.
I correct. I withdraw my statement, Judge. I withdraw my statement. My Swiss cheese, middle age, menopause
Yeah,
brain was reading that. I read that 5 times before the live stream. I'm like, I don't, wait, what?
yeah, yeah. They're outnumbered by
If you're,
sellers, Jen. There's more to choose from.
and you
That's
know
why.
what? The women that are watching this that are feeling the way I do on a daily basis, you know what I'm talking about. You
I'm
know
right
what
there
I'm
with
talking
you.
about. You're
I'm
like,
right there with you.
how did I
Yep,
get here? Okay.
yep, yep.
But anyways, it says when buyers and sellers are in different planets, I guess that's a thing now. One side eventually has to give in, and it's looking like, I mean, maybe that's where you need to go to buy a house. You need to go to Mars, I guess.
Yeah,
When buyers and sellers are on different planets, one side eventually has to give in, and it's looking like it's going to be sellers this time. Uh, I mean, it's always sellers and buyers. Like it's a seesaw. It's like not a big deal.
yep.
This is what happens in the market over the course of the last 100 years. Rising inventory
Hmm.
price drops and seller concessions indicate that this is already starting to happen. Okay. Um, let's get down to the meat. It says a lot of sellers are bringing up comps. Here we go. A lot of the sellers are bringing up comps from a year ago. We just talked about this, and I have to tell them that's no longer the environment that we're in. They're holding. This is a Redfin agent in Portland, Oregon. They're holding on to the idea that they lost money. I explained to them that they didn't lose money because, however much they could have made is in the past hypothetical money. The most important thing you can do as a seller right now is to fairly price your home. If you overprice, chances are you'll get no activity, and then it'll become even harder to recoup your investment. Jackie, that's one thing that I talk to my sellers, and something I would urge. If you're thinking about selling, and you start to go down that rabbit hole of the idea of loss, that the value of your house is not real. The value of your house is not real. What do I mean by that? Can you pull up to a house bank and withdraw money?
No,
Nope. It's not
right.
real money. The value of your house is based on what a buyer is willing to pay, and that changes on the daily. Goes up,
Yeah,
it goes down.
that is
Stock
true.
market. The stock market, same way. The
Yep.
stock market isn't real money. I mean, if you pull it out at a certain time, but then if it nosedives, unless you're looking to withdraw the money tomorrow, it's not real money. It's going to go back up. The
Right.
housing market will it's hard to believe it's going to go back up. In the areas that are dropping now, it will go back up eventually. It may take 10 years, but it will.
Hmm.
But
That's
don't,
right.
if yes, if you're looking to sell and it's a retirement and you're saying, you know what, I've reached the end of the home ownership line, and this is it. And if I had sold last year, I would have made more money because I'm not buying another house. Then yes. But in terms of the big picture, you know what I'm saying? It's not real money until you actually sell.
Right. But sellers shouldn't have it in their head like, you know what, hey, I missed a boat, but I still want to try and capitalize it and get the money that I should have gotten. And like, yeah, no, that doesn't work
Well,
that
coulda,
way.
shoulda, woulda,
Sorry.
Jackie,
Yeah. Could
right?
exactly. Yep.
Because on an
Yep.
everyday basis, we do the best we can with what we have to work with at that given time.
That's right.
Last year, the prices were higher. You could have had your finances, personal health, job situation that wasn't ideal for you to sell, which means the money is irrelevant. The house value is irrelevant because all the other
Hmm.
elements in your personal life didn't line up, right? So you have to make the decision based on, that's why all these articles, oh, it's a good time to sell, it's a good time to buy. You know what? That's all bullcrap. It's no An article's never going to tell you when you should buy unless you're an investor, right?
Right.
The time to
Yep.
sell is when all the things line up in your personal life for you. You want to sell at Christmas time? Go for it. That's when my parents bought our house back in the 80s,
Hmm.
early 80s. Why? My dad relocated. And
Yep.
they had 4 kids in tow, and they need a place to live.
Yep.
So we closed in December. 4 kids. They did what they had to do. That was the timing
That's
that
right.
mattered to them, right?
That is right.
Um, and it goes on to say, if you're a buyer and you'll find a home and you find a home you like, but is a bit over your price range, I encourage you to get the conversation started. Make an offer anyway. I agree. Make an offer you can afford, you're comfortable with. Don't shy away in markets that are in the markets that we're going to talk about in a second. Don't shy away. If you're in Jackie's market or my market, it's probably not going to get you far unless the house has been on the market for, outside that normal window, 2 weeks, three
Yeah.
weeks, 4 weeks, or more. Make an offer. It says a lot
Exactly.
of house hunters are hesitant to offer under the asking price, but in this market, it's not out of the ordinary to see sellers lower their prices and give concessions. All right, so where are the markets that are changing? There are 8 markets where sale. There are only 8 markets where sale prices grew faster than list prices. Top of the list, Cleveland, Jackie.
Wow. Look
Cleveland,
at that.
Ohio. Yeah, sale price rose 11.8%, 7.5% faster than the median list price. Then followed by Nassau County, New York, Milwaukee,
Yep.
Philadelphia, Newark, New Jersey. So here I
Which,
highlighted,
yeah, that's shocking. Like
right? I thought so.
Newark? Oh my
So
God, really?
very,
Yeah.
very interesting. Very interesting. So like Newark, the median list price year over year, right? So they're talking, March to March. Newark, the median list price 600,000 versus the sale
Hmm.
price of 590, which is so not all
Right.
of New Jersey is going bonkers crazy.
Nope. No,
You
no,
know?
no, but no, definitely. Yeah. Newark is, you know, well, I can't say, but it's not one of the more like, desirable areas, although it is changing. They are
Well,
trying to change Newark and
not as much buyer demand.
it's correct. Correct.
Not as
Yep.
much buyer demand. So you've got and I just highlighted the ones where the change in sale price was greater than the change in list price. So you've got Philadelphia,
Hmm.
okay? Then you've got Kansas City, Missouri, okay?
Yep.
5.2%. Charlotte, North Carolina, which really surprised me.
I know. Well,
Things
I
are
talked about
shifting.
that last night. They are
Mm,
shifting big time in the Carolinas, and I said that last night. It's all the new construction that's coming in,
yep,
that's still being built, and
yep,
that's adding it. It's more choices for buyers.
100%.
So that's why people got to reduce their prices to compete.
Yeah, they gotta watch the comps. They gotta watch and price it appropriately to the market. I wanted to
Absolutely.
go to the bottom. These are the areas that are being hit the hardest, and most of these I'm not surprised about, except for
No.
San Francisco, Tampa, West Palm Beach, Oakland, California, Jackie, Dallas, Texas, Austin, Texas, San Francisco, Jacksonville. So those are the ones that are, I mean, there's
Wow.
a big difference
Yeah,
between those
Oakland, I'm
prices.
surprised. Oakland was pretty hot for a while. I'm surprised at that.
Hmm. Well, there's a
Wow.
lot of things that are happening out there with weather,
Oh, with
disaster
the
related, that people are
fires.
just like,
Yep.
they're done, and the unaffordability of, the the trickle down effect from, cost of insurance and whatnot. People are just like, I'm out, you know.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I thought that was interesting. All right, I gotta hit.
Very.
Let's see what's going on over here in
We got a
your
lively
chat.
chat. Oh
I
my
love it.
goodness.
I love it. I love it. I want
I
to talk to you
know.
guys. I love talking. This is my one time a week I get to interact with you guys. So this is, it's lonely
You
sitting
know,
in this little cubicle, this little box.
yes,
My
I
office.
love my live streams. Live streams are fun.
Okay. It says, Angie Mancat says, why would sellers and buyers not look online to see what homes in your area have sold for and also what they are currently listed for? Makes no sense to go into this blind or just rely on an agent. So to that point, Angie, okay, for number one, I couldn't agree with you more. Okay, and that's one of, I mean, Jackie, that's what you and I are
Hmm.
so like adamant and passionate about is, you know, having people advocate for themselves. I'm advocating. I want home sellers to advocate for themselves. You want home buyers to advocate for themselves, and do this stuff. But the reality of it is it's this. I think it's the state of the real estate industry. Like back in my day. I mean, when I got my license, 1996. I mean, real estate agents were the gatekeepers of information. That was
Yep.
it. You couldn't. There was no Zillow. There was no computers. I didn't even have a fax machine in my office and a computer. Nothing.
That's insane. I
You
can't
can imagine
imagine
that.
I can't imagine. Oh
I
my God.
2 months after I got my license, I went down to the cell phone store and got myself my first cell phone, bag phone.
The bag phone,
I
I
thought
had
I was the
that.
bee's knees. I get this thing was like this big, and the cord and everything. I
Yep.
thought I was the coolest thing.
Yep.
And then when we got a fax machine, with like the facsimile paper that, like, if you left
Yep.
it out in the sun too long, it was like the Dead Sea Scrolls and would like completely
Yeah.
disappear and shrivel up. And that was like amazing. They were like, "Oh my god, we're getting it up. We don't have to go pick up paperwork. It's right here." But anyways, that was an age of we were the gatekeepers of information. So home buyers, home sellers relied on agents, and those
Right.
that were buying and selling, throughout those years, the more mature generations, that's what they became accustomed to.
Right.
Now, with the changes, I mean, the younger generations coming in, they've never seen that. They're used to going online, but the more mature generations, they have always relied on, so they're assuming that that's what they're going to do. But it is a shift in learning, Angie, and that just takes time. Takes time,
Yes.
takes time. Gigi's comfort food. Good to see you. Jackie, what's your favorite comfort food?
Oh
Left
God,
field question.
there are so many.
Take your time.
Um,
We'll be here all night.
God,
I,
really?
I,
I
yeah, I
can't.
gotta
I
go
was
with
just
like,
like, now you're making me hungry. I gotta go have
I
dinner.
figured chicken
Anyway,
parm.
kidding.
I like chicken, nice chicken
Chicken
parm.
parm. I was gonna say lasagna. Like I
Of
like a
course,
good
she likes
lasagna.
Sicilian, so like that's
Because
what
I'm
it's.
Italian and all. That's my thing.
Anyways,
My jam.
Gigi says, "What is your opinion on buying an over 55 community? Is there a monthly fee that is too high? What do you think, Jackie?
Uh, can can I address that one? So
I'm
55
setting
and
the
over.
I set the table. Do you see what I did? That See that segue? Went from
I
food
love
to
that.
setting the table. You like that? Okay,
I know. See, look at that.
take it
That's
away.
awesome. 55 and over communities, what you have to be careful with, you mentioned a monthly fee. You're talking about the HOA fees. So the HOA fees, yes, they will increase year after year. So it's something you have to be careful of. And you've got to, if you're on a fixed income, that could become a problem down the road because as we're seeing in Florida, because of the rise in the homeowners insurance or regular insurance that these communities have to pay into, they have to pay for their own insurance for the entire communities. You have to pay for that too in your HOA fees. So that's why a lot of these fees are rising, and it's getting harder for those on a fixed income.
Yep.
Now, to talk about the communities themselves, 55 and over communities, it's a nice thing, if you're around people your age, there's no kids, no young families, you're not dealing with any of that, the riffraff and the
In a
kids
community,
running
it's a
around,
community.
and
It's exactly what it is. It's
it's a nice it's a
interaction.
nice thing. But I have heard some downfall, comments about it, that when the people who are on these associations, homeowners associations in these communities, to get a little they're a little bit of a Karen.
I
I hate
think
to
you need
see
to do
that
your
word,
homework.
but
You got to do your
oh,
homework,
that's what I was
and
going to say.
that's what
Do
it
your
basically comes down
research.
to. Yep.
It does, and talk to the people who live in that community. If you, I'm not saying, I'm trying to discourage, but I'm just telling you what I've heard and what we know in our research.
Yep.
But do your homework. I would literally talk to people who live in the community to find out, like, what is it like living there, and get the inside skinny on it. So
110%.
there you go.
Also research who's running it. See what
Hmm.
look at who's running it. Look at try to find out if it's a company, what the record is for that company. Do they own other
Hmm.
parks? What is their track record for managing the fees? How many times have the fees been raised? You want to get a copy of the
Yes,
budget, you want to get a copy of the rules and
the
regulations,
finan
you
the
know,
financials are key. Yep, look at the
financials are key.
financials.
And then, as
Yep.
far as like the monthly fee that's too high, I think that number one, it's going to be location specific because every location in terms of whatever metro, whatever area that you live in, is going to be different depending on, down in Florida, you guys, they all have a lot more amenities than they do up here in the Northeast because of the nature of
Hmm.
where they're at. So you're paying
Exactly.
your fees are going to be higher because you're getting a lot more stuff with it. But I think the flip side is at the end of the day is the monthly fee, you know, is it too high? Well, you got to look at your own budget and you got to look at, okay, what would I spend if I belonged to a club? What would I spend if I had to maintain my own lawn? What would I spend because you're not paying taxes on the land? Technically, a modular home, mobile home, it's not considered real estate because you don't own the land that it's sitting on. So you're not paying real estate taxes. You're paying them through the HOA fee, but you've got to look at that budget and what your own personal budget looks like to see if, what's too high to you. And then,
Hmm.
you break it down that way. It's not a black and white answer for sure, for sure, for sure.
That's right.
So, and Clark says, I agree, Jen. I like anybody that says I agree with Jen. That's why Clark's my pal. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
And Clark will have the check in the mail for that one too.
Clark's got to talk.
Anyway,
Absolutely. I gotta get Clark back on this live stream.
yes,
I
you
haven't had
do.
him
I
on
know. I need
in
Clark
a
on
hot
mine
second.
too.
Clark, what are you doing next
Been a
week?
while.
I'm gonna text you. Angie says I went to an open house with the realtor I've been talking to. Very professional, set up perfect. Still need to email you her info. Yes, 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 yes. Perfect. Perfect, perfect.
Okay.
I like hearing success stories about that kind of stuff. You know what? You do
Yes.
that in your live stream, and I admire that about you. And I'm gonna follow suit and say that if anybody has any success stories about putting their house on the market, getting it under contract, to please share, share,
Yes.
share, share, because I love hearing. There's so much negativity. Jackie, you and I talk about
I,
this,
I know, and
offline
that's why
all
I
the time.
started doing that. No, we want to hear the wins. We want to hear the
Yep.
wins because if people are scared of this housing market, and you know what, it's really not that bad. I mean, people are making it happen.
Well, and
They're
if it's the
buying
right time for
houses, selling
you,
houses.
yeah. I mean,
Absolutely.
it
Yeah.
hey, I've been busy. I've been very busy and
Yeah.
with what? Well, I'm not just sitting around like
You're
crazy.
not.
No, it's like
You're not
people are
sitting.
transacting. People are doing stuff because
Yeah.
it's the right time,
Same here. I know. Yep.
I'd
Same
love
here.
to like sleep until 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. I don't know. I don't even remember last time I slept that late. Um
Me neither.
Donna Eden says, we were disappointed when our realtor told us what we needed to list our house at. Yeah, it's hard. I think,
Mhm.
the
It's
biggest,
hard to take that. I
yeah,
get
you
it.
gotta try to go into it with, you try your best to go in with an open mind as
Yeah.
much as you can. Stacy says on Jackie's live show last night, someone asked if it was a good idea to sell their house and rent for a while. The answer was yes. Housing prices are going down and rent is going up. So, yeah, I think,
So
and actually follow up because you're limited on your text with the chat. It says, wouldn't it be better to wait? I love both lives. We love that you're here. Thank you.
thank you, Stacy. We appreciate
um,
you.
I think that is a multi-prong. answer. And one reason is because it depends on where you're moving from, where you're moving to. It depends
Mm-hmm.
on what your own personal situation is, what your personal financial situation is.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're moving, say, from Florida to Massachusetts and you're going to rent for a while, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow because, yes, the prices are starting to slide in Florida, but they're going up in Massachusetts or anywhere in the Northeast. You will
Mm-hmm.
pay more when you finally do sell, which you finally do buy. However, asterisk, it also depends on what your personal priorities are. And what I mean by that is I have a client that I'm currently working with now that sold their house in Florida and moved into a rental for 6 months. And right now we're in the process of helping them buy a property in Plymouth. Why did they wait? Because are they paying more than they would have paid 6 months, 9 months ago? Yes. It was a personal priority to them not to rush into the purchase. They wanted to rent and get a better feel for the area, better feel for Plymouth. They had traveled up here. They obviously want to live here, but they really wanted to get a feel for the neighborhoods. And they also didn't want to be rushed into buying something that they didn't really love. So for the amount of money, yes, they're paying more, but for them, it was a fair trade-off. So it depends on
Right.
what your pain points are and whether you can
That's
financially afford to do that.
excellent point. That's an excellent point, especially the whole thing about like renting for a while to get a feel for the area if it's something you're brand new to. Now, say in my market, what some people will do, they will sell the house, cash out, and then they will rent for a while. I have a friend that's doing that. He sold his house a few years ago, and him and his family are renting. They're renting a townhouse right now, and they're waiting for the right opportunity to come along. Because for that very same reason, because the market is so crazy here, you have to jump the second it comes on the market, and you got to be, overshooting by, 50, 75, $100,000. And he didn't want to be in that position. He
Right.
wanted to get a feel for what's going on out there, know what's in, and just really know where he wants to be, what type of house he wants to be in, and all the things. So yeah, so it does. Yeah, I understand. You're going to probably pay rent for a little bit, and it could be higher than what you're paying, but at the end of the day, it may save you with overpaying, overshooting,
Yep.
and paying a lot for a house because you felt that pressure.
100%.
So, yep.
Um, Lisa says Zestimates are trash.
Yeah,
Let's
Lisa, I
dis-
love you.
let's
Of course.
discuss.
They
So
are trash.
so here's the thing. The reason why they're trash, they have a very, very, very intricate algorithm. They have an
Mm-hmm.
algorithm. They try to anticipate, what houses are sold for in a neighborhood and all the things, yada yada. At the end of the day, what determines the value, and I know I sound like a broken record, the buyer demand and what the buyer's willing to pay is what will determine a value. If you have two houses on the same street, right, and they're identical every way, land, property, condition, finishes, whatever. That's what Zillow perceives in terms of the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, the square footage, the lot size, all the things. Except one house has a high-end $50,000 kitchen and a beautiful pool with a cabana and all the things. And the other one is builder grade. Zillow's going to see those as almost identical. The buyers
Mm-hmm.
are not.
That's
The
right.
buyers are not. So that's why, in a sense, Lisa's right. Now, and that's why you have to be careful. That's why you have to be careful. I did a video, Jackie, and was talking about that, and somebody commented like, everybody knows what a Zestimate is. It's like, well, you may have heard of it, but do you really understand it? And
Right. They don't.
I'm shocked that a lot of agents don't. They're like, oh, it's in the ballpark of
No.
the Zestimate. I'm like, do you even understand what a Zestimate is? It's
Yep.
like, what the town, when your town, if unless you're in a town that assesses full value assessments, that's different. But say where I'm at, the town assesses based on the neighborhood. So my house
Hmm.
might be assessed exactly the same as my neighbor's house for my tax purposes, but the assessors, they're not going to add value because I put in mini splits and a gas fireplace and hardwood floors and new windows and new roof and all, hardy board siding and all the things.
Hmm.
They're not going to add value to that. So
No.
I think it's important to know because It could swing the other way too, because if you are the house that is the builder grade house, Jackie, and the majority of the houses are on the other end, you're like, well, of course my house is worth that because look at this estimate. Why is this estimate higher? Because they're using the comparable properties that they're using are superior comparable properties to yours.
Right. Another thing I want to answer is estimates, you have to be careful is where are they pulling the other comparables from? So I did a little test several months back, and I was looking at my client's list because he was like, "Oh, this is what Zillow says." This is what Zillow says. I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't stop." So I went. I can't.
Stop.
So I went
As
on
Jackie
Zillow.
Baker would say, just stop.
Just
Stop.
stop it.
In
I
North
can't.
Jersey.
So this is so what so anyway, so I'm looking on Zillow, I'm looking at this estimate, and it'll show you the comparables,
Yep.
right? That
Yep.
homes similar to this. And they were pulling comparables from different towns. It wasn't even in my
It's a
town.
great point.
And I'm
Yep.
like, what the this is why the number's so screwed up. And I had to go back and tell them, like, no, that's not that's, that's why your house is it's not worth it. Thank you. It's not pulling it from your neighborhood, from your town. They don't do that. It's just
Nope.
it drives me nuts when people are like, "Oh, my Zestimate says this." My husband does that sometimes. He'll be on Zillow. He's like, "You see our Zestimate lately?" I'm like, I go, put that away. I don't even want to hear that
Yeah,
number
you know
because it's
what?
fake.
Steven's got
It's
a
fake.
Steven, like, who does he think he is? Really?
Exactly. It's like,
Seriously?
come on, who are you married to? Come on,
Right.
you know better.
Donna says, should sellers wait the storm out? That's a great question.
Mm,
That's a great
that is a
question.
good
And,
question.
not to sidestep the question, but it is going to depend on your personal
Your
situation. It
situation, your
depends
personal
on where you're
situation.
located.
Yep.
If you're in a situation where you don't have to move now and you're actually okay, and you're in a situation where maybe the prices are starting to slide and you can stay there another 5 years, 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably wait it out because you look at the history. If we look at the history of, and actually, it's like, actually, you know what, Jackie, you take over the conversation for a sec because I'm actually going to pull that because I literally had it on my live stream. I think it was last week,
Okay.
of the historical home price average. Um, yeah, give me two
Yeah,
seconds.
no, so no, I agree with you that people should again, it comes down to your personal situation. And but keep in mind when as Jen said before, when that time comes and the market has if it's softened in your market in your town or whatever and prices have come down a little bit, you got to you got to accept that. You're not
Yep,
going to get what you're getting today. And if you're fine with that, like that's the situation I'm in right now. Like I could list my house today and I can make a lot of money on it, and I'm in no position to sell it. I'm not. Like I would love to get that money, and I've accepted the fact. Like a year from now, I may not get this price. Will I still make money on it? Yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of equity, but I don't think I'm going to get what I could get in today's market in a
nope.
year from now. I don't know, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. We don't know. It all comes down to your personal situation, as Jen said. Oh, look
So,
at that fancy little chart there.
right. So here's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Why should you wait it out? So we've got 1965. These are the median sale prices for homes sold in the U.S. Okay, across the country. You'll notice that it dips down, it goes back up. It dips
Mm-hmm.
down, it goes back up. Yes, there's ebbs and flows because there are always going to be some market corrections as more interest rates affect the market, as the economy, inflation, recession, all the things affect the market. Then you'll see those little bumps, right? I mean, these
Mm-hmm.
great areas are recessions, so that you're going to see. We had drop here. Oh 06, oh 07, oh 08, oh 09. Most
Yep.
historically, I actually talked about this in my last video. Historically, home prices rise during a recession. Keep that in mind. If you're in the school, there's a lot of schools of thought right now, Jackie. Some are like, we're in a recession. Some are like, we're going to be. And some are like, no way, it's not going to happen. Right. Regardless of
Mm-hmm.
where you are at, if you're in that school of thought of, I'm going to wait for the recession and the prices are going to come down, do not hold your breath because historically the odds are against you.
Mm-mm.
But if say the prices, we've got an adjustment, we got a wicked adjustment, and we're bumping along, based on that curvature, what's going to happen the next 10 years, next 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to go up, even when you have a big adjustment during the and that was, I remember, Jackie, 30%, 35% adjustment. I couldn't tell you how many people I talked to when I talked to a lot of folks that were selling upside down and all the things. And
Yep.
everyone, "Oh, prices will never be this high again. Prices will never be
Yep.
this high again. Ever, ever, ever." And how long
Yeah.
did it
And look
take?
where we are.
2012. 2012 is where the peak of where it was in 2007. 5 years is all it took
Yep.
to rebound from a serious adjustment. And this is
Yep.
and so
That's right.
so this adjustment feels and sounds, the media, I just have no love for any of the media. I don't watch any of this other. Jackie, you and I talk about this
No.
all the time.
Oh
All the
no.
major news
Nope.
stations, I have no use for them. I don't watch them. Um, I like News Nation. That's the only one I watch
Yeah.
because I think they all embellish, and the same with these articles. They
They do.
embellish and they make
It's
it sound
so
like it's
frustrating.
so like catastrophic. Does this look like? I'm gonna shorten this to, usually I have a slide down here, but if we shorten this to, let's just get to, we'll just get to 2010. Will it do it? Oh, come on now. Come on now, Jen.
Come on, Jen.
I know, I'm working on it. So if we shorten it, like, does this look like a catastrophic adjustment? No.
No.
Will it continue to adjust? I think
Nope.
it will. I think it will
It
continue
will.
to soften. But are we going to end up down here? No. I think that
There'll be a correction.
there'll be a correction, but even
There's
during
to
the
be a
worst
correction.
correction, there wasn't that much of a drop. And that was the housing market, the last recession. It was all about, not the great, not the pandemic recession, but the great financial. That
Hmm.
was all a housing market, mortgage market driven recession. All the other recessions were
Exactly.
not. They were
I
not.
know.
So
Yep.
so I think that it's a tough. I know we're like dancing around the subject of, should the sellers wait it out? I think it's a personal decision, and if you have the time, maybe, But I think that
Yep.
yeah, and but if you don't, just don't feel bad about it. Um, Stephanie says, "What do seniors in Florida do when there are hurricanes and warnings? Not as easy to deal with evacuations, dealings with uncertainty when you're a senior."
So true.
That's a
That's
good
so true.
question. That's a
They
great
have to
question.
evacuate, and that's what worries me too. Like when a lot of these seniors move down there, and their young kids aren't nearby. They don't have family nearby. Where are they going to go?
Yep.
You know. That's
110%.
Yep.
Enos's insurance costs are really high in Florida.
Hmm.
100%.
That's why people are leaving.
Patty says, Stephanie, prepare in your home. If you can't safely stay there, are public shelters. Yes, because Patty's down there. 100%.
Yes. Thank you, Patty, for that.
Stacy says, I'm 55. I feel you. She must be referring to, like, I don't know. I don't have timestamps on these comments. It's
Yeah.
probably
Oh,
my
she's
Swiss
talking about
cheese
us
moment.
being, yeah, the middle aged brains that we have.
Yeah, and
Yes.
you know what? Gen G's got my back.
It was a poorly written set. You see, you're good.
She's got
That's
my
right.
back.
He's got. Yep.
Us
Yep.
Gens got to stick together.
Thanks, Jen.
Cato says, looking at listings in Seattle, lots of crappy places for sale, for at and under $1 million. Nowhere I'd want to live.
Mm,
I would not live there for that exact reason.
I wouldn't either.
Well, it
Don't
depends.
blame
It's
you.
location, location,
Mm,
location. How much do you want to live in that location? If you want to live in that location, then that's the price you have to pay. But if you
right.
are not, if you're willing to say, it's not worth it to me as a buyer, well, then there's no value. Then you look in a different location.
Yeah, that's right. You got a,
100%.
you have a very lively chat tonight, Jen. This is
I
awesome.
love hearing from you guys. Juanita,
Yes, this is
welcome,
great.
welcome, welcome. Most sellers are also buyers. Yes, if they are moving to a
Yep.
different house. So when there are more buyers, is it based mainly on first-time home owners? So when there are more buyers, is it mainly based on
Meaning that
first?
most of the buyers are first time buyers. That's how I'm reading that,
Okay.
right?
So yes.
Yeah, I think the market's being driven is mainly first time buyers. Like the millennial, my my
Well,
population are millennials. What?
the first time home
Like
buyer,
that?
you actually had some stats on this last night, I think it was. The first time,
Yes.
well, so, okay, so the what's interesting is that what you think of as a first time home buyer, right now, the boomers have overtaken the millennials for
But
the
their
number one
second,
seat
right?
for
It's
first time for
for
buyers. Well, for buyers, I guess.
just
Yes,
buyers in general, not first
yes,
timers, right? But the
right.
millennials,
Well,
yeah, I pulled those stats last night. What was it, like 17% or of millennials are homeowners? But that generation is the population is as big as boomers, if not even bigger. Maybe I can't say that 100%, but it's a huge population. And
correct.
that's who's trying to buy a house right now. They're all of the age where they can buy a house. And now we got Gen Z coming up behind them. They're like
What's
the older Gen Zs are like are turning 24, 25 years old. So they're coming up.
correct? Well, and why that's
Yeah.
significant is that typically in past markets, first time homebuyers typically make up 40-45% of the market,
Hmm.
and they are not right now. They
Right.
are
If the
not.
boomers are doing it,
The
the
market
boomers
has
making up majority of it.
yep. Um,
Yep.
let's see here. Lots of chatter amongst the chat,
Lots. I
which
love
is
it.
so great. So
Love the
great.
conversations.
Same. Oh, this is kind of funny. Um, let's see. Stacy says Kansas City still has growth and new construction thanks to developers buying up property that was previously farmland outside of the city limits. Cities are
Um,
annexing the land for the tax money.
wow.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Interesting.
So you speaking of that, Delaware is doing the same thing. I get
Are they
so upset
really?
when I go down there now because they're buying up the farms and building new construction on the farmland.
Mm,
It's like, can we leave some of these around? We need farms. Like we got to support our farmers here. What are we doing?
that's
Yeah,
bonkers.
the
Bonkers,
same things.
bonkers.
And as small as Delaware is, I mean, can you imagine how crowded that's going to be when all those communities are done being built? It'd be
Yep.
crazy.
Yep.
Yep.
Um, let's see here. Cat Diamond says, I hope we get what we need to get for I hope we get what we need to get for our home in Northern California so we can do what needs to be done in our new home in Virginia. That is probably okay. So one of the things that I talk a lot about and this is part of that, interview process when you're looking at listing agents and interviewing seller agents and so forth. You want to make sure that you are talking to an agent that estimates your net proceeds, that can intelligently tell you how much they think you're going to walk away with. Because there's
Right.
nothing worse than saying, this is what the price is, and this is what the commission is, and then they don't tell you anything else. And then you get to the closing table, and you're like, well, that's like 10 grand or 5 grand less than what I thought I was going to walk away with. And now that's upsetting the apple
Uh-huh.
cart on the other end. You want to be able
Yep.
to, and there is no reason. I typically, when I estimate my net proceeds for my clients, Jack, I'm in within like a couple $100 typically. And the only reason is because of
Hmm.
prorating based on when the closing date falls in the month.
Right.
If they're getting a mortgage, there'll be prorating, per diem interest or taxes or something like that. But an agent should be able to do that 110% so that you can get the exact number. And then you have to make the decision on whether you roll with it because you can't force a buyer to pay what you want them to. You can hope,
Hmm.
but and I would say make sure you know what your baseline number is before you put the house on the market, before you make that jump as early as you possibly can so that you can know where your threshold is. Um, my
Exactly.
fingers
And
are crossed for you.
that's yes, and but that's super important, Jenny, to say that because when we sold our house in New York and moved to New Jersey, our agent didn't do that for us. We didn't even think about it. We're like, because Steve's the numbers guy, and I figured, all
Yep.
right, he knows,
Well, he's an
we know what we're
accountant.
talking about. He knows what he's
Yeah.
doing, right? So we were sitting at the closing table. I wanted to choke when I saw the closing documents and saw what we were walking away with. I'm like, because I had a different number, and we were thinking the same thing. We were calculating the commission. But then there was, I forget, there was a couple of other things because it was in New York. We were hit with like, the transfer tax, with the closing fees, you pay the attorney and all that stuff.
Yep.
And I was like, I turned to him, I'm like, this is all we're walking away with? Like, I thought it was more than
That's
that. And he's like, yeah,
horrifying,
no, this is
Jackie.
okay. I
That's
know, I know,
horrifying.
I know. Yep, yep.
I'll
We
I'll
weren't,
I'll
we weren't aware.
sometimes
Yeah,
I'll sit down with a home seller, and and it might be somebody that somebody have reached out, referred to me or whatever. I've never met them before. And I'm going through the numbers, and then I go to, after we kind of, talk about what the fair market value prediction is on the house. Okay, let's talk about what you're actually going to walk away with. And I turn the
mm,
page and I get it all, and I get a spreadsheet. I use a spreadsheet, and all the numbers and stuff are all there. I like it black and white because I'm a visual learner, visual thinker. I need to see the stuff in front of me, so I'm trying to put that. That's the
right.
way I present it. I can't count how many times that the sellers sitting across the table say, "Oh my god, our other agents, our old agent, we've never had an agent go over this." And I go, "This is crazy. This is crazy that
I
number one, that
know.
they're not doing it. Number two, that the sellers don't know to ask. Sellers don't know, homeowners and home buyers, they don't know what they don't know. And
That's
it
right.
makes me furious. Like, there's
Yep.
just, I mean, that's like basic stuff, but
I
that's why I try
know.
to bang the drum so that you guys can ask. I had a um I had a viewer reach out to me for referral, and she emailed me today, and said that she had interviewed an agent that she thought was a 20% agent, and she started going through all the questions that I kind of coach on in my, on my videos, and the agent got mad and left and then ghosted her. I said, "Bravo, you just sidestepped an 80% agent."
See, there you go.
I was
There
so
you
proud of
go.
her. I so proud of her. I said,
Oh
you
my
go, girl."
gosh. Wait.
But
Oh my
because that's the
gosh.
thing. People just, these agents, you got to snuff them out, and you got to be the one. You got to take control. You got to be the one. Um,
Yeah.
Russell says, "I spoke to someone who sold their 2021 house with a super low mortgage rate for a new house with a 7% interest rate, but they were in $150,000 profit. So that starts to matter." It's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It's
as true
true.
as true.
Yep. Yeah, the
100%.
money you're pulling, yeah, the money you're pulling out of your house and putting down on the next one, you get a lower mortgage and all that, all the things. That
Absolutely.
that that,
Absolutely.
that
This
definitely
is,
has an impact.
I am, oh, I gotta, you know what? I actually need to start doing this because I want to make sure I answer these questions. I should put question at the beginning of the question. I gotta start doing that.
Yes.
So Jay Stratton says, is a city like Las Vegas, where investors are dumping billions into projects, does it give a good barometer of continued increase of housing prices? I don't, you know what? I don't necessarily think that that would be the case, for one particular area to be a barometer for other
Mm,
areas. Not necessarily, because a lot of states, a lot of areas are doing the same thing. I mean, Jackie, you talk all the time about, was it Netflix? Is that Netflix? Or no,
mm-hmm.
Amazon?
Yep.
Is it
Netflix.
Netflix
Yeah,
is coming into
Netflix.
Jersey, right? And they're
Yep.
building this big facility and all the things. There's going to be, thousands of jobs, and they're going to need housing and all the stuff.
Yeah, right.
It's happening everywhere,
It
right?
is.
It's happening
Yep.
everywhere. So I don't know necessarily. I think that, I mean, Vegas, a lot of people migrated from California to Nevada,
Mm-hmm.
to get away from some of the COVID stuff that was happening and the restrictions and all the things. But
Yep.
a lot of people are leaving now as well. So
No,
I
I
don't know.
know Vegas is one of those markets that's softened too. So who knows? Look, if they're going to be building, projects, they're going to be bringing more jobs there. Yeah, it could
Yep.
definitely affect the housing prices. Like they're predicting the homes on the Jersey Shore to go even higher once that Netflix studio comes in. They're saying this studio is going to be Hollywood of the East. So
And you know what?
get ready.
The if as long as there's continued demand and people continue to
Yeah.
buy, the
Yep.
prices will continue to go up. The only way prices come down is full circle back
No
to the
one's
beginning of
buying.
this conversation is when buyers pull
Yep,
back. If buyers start
exactly.
to willingly pull back and say, I'm not going to pay that because I
Yep.
think it's too high, collectively, then you'll start to see the softening. But until that happens,
Mm-hmm.
Pflugerville. So fun fact.
Ooh.
I love like any like sports shows. I uh um the oh gosh, Friday Night Lights, which is where the Dillon
Oh
Panthers, which
yeah.
is that movie which led to a series. And
Yep.
my brother lives just outside of Austin. And he actually took me to Pflugerville where they filmed it, which
Oh
I actually saw the
jeez.
stadium where they filmed the show. And it's like, I was like, "This looks nothing like it does on TV, but it looks cool."
It never does. It never does.
It's football is like, it's like, when they say down the South, Jackie, when they say God in football, they ain't joking. They
Oh, it's so true.
they are not, I mean, it's
It's
like
so
the town stops over football,
so,
but anyhow,
so true.
I digress. It says, I have seen houses take 6 to 8 months in my area, no demand from buyers.
Mm.
So here's the question that I would have, Leslie, and for in your thoughts, Jackie. So the houses are sitting for 6 to 8 months, no demand. Is it truly no demand, or are the buyers there, but you're just not seeing them because they're not willing to pay the prices that the market
That's
is at
exactly what
right
I was
now?
going to say. That's
I think
exactly what I was going to
the
say.
buyers don't, we have such
They're
a
there. They're
deficit in
just not want to.
housing.
Yep.
The buyers aren't going
Yep.
anywhere. They just press pause. They just
But
press
the
pause.
demand the
Soon as it comes
demand has gone
down,
down for Austin, right? But the demand's gone down for Austin because people aren't moving there like they did during the pandemic. And there were a lot of jobs, there were tech jobs. Some companies folded and people lost their jobs and they're leaving that area. So
yep.
the demand has definitely died down, but it's still there. But you're right. It comes down to the
And
pricing too.
they built a lot. They built a
They built a
lot. They
lot.
had a lot
Yep.
of new construction, a lot of
I know.
commercial. There's a lot of industry, there's a lot
Yep.
of building. And that when when you introduce a lot of housing into an area, now that the scales start to tip so that you have
Yep.
more sellers than buyers, and if you have houses that are
Hmm.
priced incorrectly, they're not in line with the market.
Yep.
Carol
Right.
says, my house is under contract in Fairfax, County, Virginia. I'm going to rent for
Yay.
a year and then see what happens. Maybe I'll know where to move and find a buyer's market. And that's the thing. I think
That's
that
great.
strategy for some people, it works. You
Yep.
know, it
Nothing
works.
nothing wrong with it. Take your time. You don't want to be pushed. You don't want to be what do you call it? Doing the FOMO thing and feeling pressure to buy, especially if
Yeah,
it's if
and
it's a hotter
just
market.
ignore the market, ignore the news and the market and
Hmm.
all the things, and do your thing. Leslie says, I'm a
Absolutely.
boomer. However, not all of us have paid for homes or tons of equity. Life circumstances, job changes, yep, impact your housing
Yep.
decisions 110%.
Absolutely.
And that's why
Yep.
it's not black and white. It is not black and
Hmm.
white. Let's see here. Oh, Carol says, "Is there a length of time to plan to stay in a house?" I think this will be the last question. Is there a length of time to plan to stay in a house, or condo purchase? I think at this stage in the game, Jackie, I would recommend, in terms of, when you're planning, I would give it at least seven, 7 to 10 years,
Yep.
because especially if we're looking like we were talking about earlier with the housing prices and as they soften,
Hmm.
I think it's going to take about 7 to 10 years before we see that
That's
jump
right.
again. I really do. Based on,
Yeah,
not based on feeling, based on history, based on
right.
data, based on what the market's done before, based on what we've seen in the past, and I think that
Hmm.
the people that are struggling now are the ones that just bought in the last 5 years, and
Hmm.
it hasn't been long enough.
No.
It hasn't been long
Nope.
enough. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yes,
But
ma'am.
um
This is good stuff.
this is good stuff.
Good
Jackie,
stuff, my friend.
I so
Yeah.
appreciate you being here.
I so
So
appreciate you having me. Thank you.
those watching again, Jackie's up in North Jersey. And
Yep.
so if you you want to check out our channel about your daily dose of real estate reality, if you want to buy a house up there, talk to her about or just commiserate about prices in New Jersey, you can reach out to her.
I'm all ears. I'm all ears. Let's talk about it.
And if you need a referral, if you're moving, I'm in the South Shore, south of Boston, Plymouth, and the surrounding areas, down in Plymouth, Massachusetts. But if you want to be connected to one of my 20% agents, coast to coast, um, this link is in the description. You fill it out, short form. I'll get in touch with you. I have a longer form depending on whether you're looking for a listing agent, buying agent, or both. And then I'll get to work. Get to work and
All
connect you
right.
with one of my agents and get you taken care of. So, Jackie, thank you. Everybody watching,
Jen, thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. It was awesome tonight. Great chat.
Great
Connecting
conversation.
people.
I appreciate
Yes.
everybody who chimed in and shared all of their stories and all the things. And you know what, Jackie? You know what we try to do here? We try to do the thing that I always talk about, which is seek to understand. We try not to
Yes,
judge. We
ma'am.
try not to take things for face value. And that's what I would, my parting words is if, you know what, when you're trying to do something, trying to talk to someone, you come across someone, I think there's so much disconnect in this country right now that, honestly, not everything can be solved, but a lot can be solved. A lot can be smoothed over by just, instead of jumping to conclusions, just try to listen to the other person, try to understand that person, try to understand the data, try to understand the stuff before making assumptions.
That's right.
And then we try
Good
to figure,
advice.
try to go down that road a little bit happier. So,
Yes. Good advice, my friend. Thank
any
you.
last words? Sounds like
Any
I'm
last
committing you.
words?
Any last words,
Yeah, I
Baker?
know. No, I'm good. Everybody just stay positive. Things will happen. If you want to buy a house, sell a house, it'll happen. So just stay positive.
Be kind to your neighbor. Look in on your neighbor. Look both ways before you cross the street. Be good. Be safe. And we'll see everybody next week.
All
Same
right.
bat time, same bat channel. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.